Welcome everyone to God's Gift Through His Word. My name is T. Drake, and I have an amazing time for you today. We're going to be talking about feeding your mind, fueling your soul, and a few visionary views. We'll have a little bit more when we return. Welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you guys are here with me. I today have a special guest for you. Her name is Red Sable. She is a podcaster of Feed Your Mind, Fuel Your Soul, and Visionary Views. So without further ado, hi Red Sable.
Hi, Tanika. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here with me too. I get choked up a little bit. So I wanted to ask you just a little bit about what is feed your mind through your soul.
Okay. So, Feed Your Mind, Fuel Your Soul is a concept that I came up with years ago because I was looking for something that was going to be positive to feed my mind with positivity and encouragement and get rid of all of the trauma and the pain and the hurt that I was feeling from many years. And I thought if you release yourself of your traumas, then you will be able to refuel your soul. And when you refuel your soul, you'll have a better time of being able to make sense of some things and throwing away some things that you don't need. And I developed my podcast on that concept. It was telling real life stories from a lifelong journey of lessons and wrapping it in love and music. And some days were good days, laughter and music, and some days was days of crying. But yeah, it's a podcast and it helped heal me in a lot of ways.
Hello, beloved. How are you? Thanks so much for tuning in. I am Red Sable, and this is Feed Your Mind, Fuel Your Soul Radio. We are talking storytelling, elevations, revelations. We're talking inspiration. We're also talking some messages that turned into some blessings. So enjoy the music as well, and I appreciate any comments that you may have. Thank you for your time, attention, and energy.
Well, Ms. Red Sable, you and I met because of that amazing show, and we had a lot in common because, like you, music ministers to me, and I believe it's a therapy just as you do. So that's one of the reasons we connected. And I wanted to share a little bit about my journey with you, Ms. Red Sable. And I enjoyed listening to your podcast on many occasions, where I would sit underneath a tree and I would hear your voice just talking, and you would have this music in the background. And I said, this is my kind of woman because she gets me. She doesn't know me, but she gets me. The music was so soothing, and it didn't matter what kind of music. I was just blown away because music for me is how I deal with some things, and I had to process a lot of things. And I was like, this is a person that understands how important and how integral music is to healing your body. So when I heard that feed your mind, fuel your soul, I was like, oh yes, this is the woman for me. I will be tuning in to her program. So with that, can you tell people a little bit about Visionary Views?
Okay, so now visionary reviews is another concept. This one is really geared towards the visionaries that I met over the years. I come from an entertainment background. So I met, oh my gosh, some amazing people, but they went through some traumatic experiences and had some stories to tell, but they told their stories through fashion and film and music. So I created Visionary Views in order to invite them onto the platform based on their creativity and their journey and why they podcast, why they draw, why they create art, why do they sing, why do they dance, why did they become a fashion designer or model or an actor. And that's what Visionary Views is about. It's about them telling you the story that led them from their traumas to their treasures, and their treasures became their purpose, and their purpose is their gift. And so that's where Visionary Views came from. I love that show. It was amazing. And people being on my show, he was one of my first guests. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. You know what, Miss Benson? Never shared that, and I didn't know. Listen, I'm so glad that was a very good show too. But we will not talk about chandelier. We'll keep it just in case. Listen.
No. We're not doing that. No.
You know, we have a good time when we get together, and that's just some of the things that we do. We get to laugh, and we get to really talk about some things that are really hardcore and get down to the heart of the matter, get down to the soul of the matter. And you, in particular, always have done that. I've listened to, I don't know how many countless episodes that you have done where you have alluded to some little bit of your story, but then use it. And a lot of the stuff I never knew about you when I first discovered who you are. Like, this woman has a very extensive background in entertainment. And you just, like you said, you never know the type of people that you're going to run into being a podcaster. You get to meet some amazing people, such as yourself. So I wanted you to just share just a little bit about your background within the entertainment industry.
Well, it began with me being in front of the camera. I did some modeling when I was a young kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I tried to do some dancing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, okay, this ain't for me. I like to be in front of the camera. And I said, okay, so what else can you do? And I said, well, I like helping people, and I like being creative. So what if I could put that together? But it didn't come to fruition until years later. I met a cousin who I had not seen in years, and she was singing for a real popular singer, Kelly Price. And she said, why don't we get together and create a music company? And I was like, girl, I don't know nothing about a music company. And she said, no, we can do it. She said, I don't know either. She said, but you have a managerial background, and I know how to sing, and I know some people, so we can put our minds together and come up with something. So it was three of us, her, I, and one of her friends, and we came up with a company called La Femme Fatale. It was the first entertainment management company that we knew of that was run by African-American women back then. It was like the late 90s or something. And we loved it. We enjoyed it so much. I met so many people. Oh my gosh. The talent is just, it is amazing. It's like planting seeds and watching them grow, and you see the flowers and it becomes so pretty when they start to bloom. It's like, it's hard to explain. It's like when you watch your babies for the first time and they start to crawl, and then they go from crawling to walking. I get so connected to them, and they become my family. And so I loved it so much. So we had to stop because of 9/11. We, at that point, had 25 artists, and 25 artists out of those 25, 5 of them were being signed at that time by a company called DreamWorks. DreamWorks is, I don't think they do music anymore, but DreamWorks was a production company that was going to sign 5 artists. But then something happened, and that didn't go well. That's a long story. But nonetheless, what we did was we had to sit and I don't know, I went through a depression, she went through a depression, we didn't know what to do. Then we came back together and we said, you know what? Let's use your background as a writer and turn it into a soap opera. And I said, I like to write, but I don't want to become a soap opera. She's always pushing me to do stuff
Well, hang on one second. I know we have so much more that we can talk about. Let's hang on for a second, and we'll be right back.
Trauma, anxiety, and depression. can be inherited through the way we interact with our children. Here at Lifeway Services, it is our mission to restore hurting homes by fostering wholeness through therapy, connectedness, and faith. Lifeway Services, the way to wholeness.
Hello, everyone, and we are back with Miss Red Sable, and she was just telling us amazing stuff about herself in the industry. So, Miss Red Sable, could you let people know a little bit about the rest of that story about you being in the entertainment industry?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to make it too long because we'll be talking here for years. I've been in the industry for like 25 years. So I went from La Femme Fatale to Fatal Focus Films, from Fatal Focus Films to sitting and contemplating what I was going to do next, and then taking all of that and turning it into Je ne sais quoi entertainment productions and management, which is music, fashion, and film all together. During the time that I decided that Je ne sais quoi, I needed to take a little bit of a sit down, was when I started getting information from my doctors about my vision.
Well, Miss Red Sable, like I said, meeting you, I met a whole bunch of people with a lot of background and extensive areas, and you are no different. So when we are talking about that little transition, can you tell people just a short Reader's Digest version of your story?
Okay, so I'm a domestic violence survivor. I am a sexual assault survivor. I'm a survivor of child molestation as well. I suffered a lot of trauma during my entire life. From the time I was a little girl, around 5 years old, my first traumatic experience was when I was in preschool. And then it went all the way up until my early 30s. It was a little bit more subtle. That's when I started realizing that domestic violence has levels to them. So when I was being abused, I didn't realize it was abuse because I was not being hit, but I was being mentally and emotionally controlled by someone who I loved deeply, who never put his hands on me, but controlled me in other ways. Mm-hmm. And so I suffered for years for that. I didn't start realizing that the trauma that I suffered from when I was a kid, I was with someone who thought that his way of showing love was by beating me up. And I don't mean just beating me up. I mean assaulting me. I mean brutally beating me because he could not control his emotions, because whatever was going on in his past, I guess he couldn't resolve his own issues. I don't know. I used to call him all kinds of names like punk and all kinds of ugly names. But I'm not bitter about that anymore. I think that I went through it for a reason. Not to say that it was okay, because it was not okay. When I was bleeding on the floor and broken and having bruises on my legs and blood clots, and I had swollen lymph nodes, I was a kid. None of that was okay. It is not okay for a man to tell you he loves you in 1 second and then punches you in the face and throws you across the room the next second, and then wants to continue to have sexual relationships with you. None of that is okay. It's not okay to call you names. Even when I was wearing one of my ex's shirts, and I was going to the store. I had on his shirt and some baggy jeans. And when I came upstairs from the store, he told me you look like a slut, because there were some guys across the street who was looking at me. I don't know why they was looking at me. I don't know why they found whatever I was wearing to be sexy or alluring, but it's not about sex. Domestic violence ain't about sex. Rape ain't about sex. It's about control.
Right.
It's about wanting to control you so that you can continue to submit to their whims. And if you don't, then you will pay the price of that. And I paid the price of that for years. I watched my mother pay the price of that for years. And her answer was drugs and alcohol. I did not want that. I said, there has to be a better way. She couldn't teach me a way, so I had to figure out how to teach my daughter a better way. Unfortunately, my daughter became bitter and angry, and she fought everybody, like everybody. But as much as I fear for that fire in her, I embrace that fire in her too, because I wish I had it. Because if I had it, then maybe I wouldn't have vision issues today. I suffered blows to my head so badly that it ruptured retinas in my eyes. So now I have to have these constant surgeries in order for me to continue to make sure that my retina does not completely tear apart. Because once it does that, the vision is gone. Then I'm fighting other issues with glaucoma, and that's another attacker. It steals your vision slowly. It's like a slow death to vision, to your sight. And it's something that you're supposed to gradually get. It's supposed to be genetic, and sometimes you get it when you're older. But if you are suffering from some type of traumatic experience, it escalates. And mine's escalated. And so the doctors did what they could.
Well, Ms. Red Sable, all that you've been sharing is super powerful, and people need to know all about your story and your testimony, that you're even brave enough and courageous enough to share it. So we'll be right back with more of Red Sable's story.
It doesn't matter what you're going through now, my God will make a way out. And he inhabits the praises of his people, so God, I'm gonna open my mouth. It doesn't matter where I've been, you're a friend and I love the way that you save the day. I don't have to get my own way, my help comes when I look up. I see the glory when I look up.
Real Talk with Dr. Rollins Fells. It's a place where we're going to have honest conversations that reframe reality, empower vision, activate faith, and liberate legacy. I'll see you then.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We were just talking about Red Sable's amazing story. So, as we know, Red Sable, you and I have a connection because of us both being survivors of domestic violence and abuse. And so, I just wanted to allude to everyone why it is so important that we continue to have the discussions and the talks about sharing about domestic violence and what it does to people, and that myth that says if it happened to you, you should have just left, how that's not really true.
It's going to always be important. It's going to be important until people realize they should keep their hands to themselves. It's going to be important until people realize that you're not just hitting that person for the moment and then they're going to get a little bruise and it's going to go away. It's lifetime trauma that this person is going to suffer. It's the family that's suffering. It's the children that's suffering. It's you that's suffering. It's like you break a bone in your body and they fix it. But then years later, you have arthritis. Mm-hmm. And then that arthritis breaks down that particular limb. And now you can't walk. And they're telling you they have to take away your limb. It has to be talked about. It cannot be hidden anymore. We have to stop taking our generational trauma and sticking it in the closet and sweeping it under the rug and hiding it in the attic or in the basement because that's what our parents did, because their parents did it, and because their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents did. We have to stop being afraid to tell the truth, because if we don't, the devil is going to continue to show up and wreck our lives and steal our souls with this deception that we should shut up and take the pain and the abuse, that we should shut up and never speak about it because we're going to be ostracized and they're going to talk bad about you. Or you ain't going to have any friends because you're always talking about this stuff. I don't know every single woman in the world, right? I don't know every single man in the world. But what I do know is that them themselves have suffered or they know someone who has suffered in their life because of domestic violence. I know that when you don't heal a wound, it comes up in other parts of your life, and it turns into this unforeseen monster. And you don't understand why you don't feel good. You don't understand why you're always angry and bitter. You don't understand why people don't want to be around you. And you don't understand why you're sad all the time. But then one day something will trigger you and you will realize it's the trauma that you did not deal with. It's the trauma that you refuse to accept that you went through, because some of us are in denial. We refuse to say, oh no, you get the best of me, blah, 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 blah. That is just, all you're doing is the inevitable. The inevitable is going to come around and smack you in the face, or smack somebody else in the face. Because what we tend to do is we wear our wounds like they're clothing. And we put on that raggedy old coat. And we keep on thinking, oh, this coat is still good, it's in good condition, I look good in this coat. But the coat is raggedy, but you don't see it. It's starting to smell. The mothballs has gotten to it, but you don't see it. You realize the coat has gotten heavier, but you don't feel it. But everybody else around you do. Everybody else around you knows the difference, but you're not accepting it because you're not dealing with your own pain. And you're taking your pain out on those that you love that's closest to you. So that's why it's important to tell the story. I cannot do what I loved so much to do the way I used to do it, but God has given me another way to do it. And that's why I podcast. And podcasting is going to lead to radio shows and television shows. It is, because that was my calling to begin with, to speak and to share my journey and to help others to share theirs through the world of creativity. So that's why I do what I do.
Well, Ms. Red Sable, let me just say, your story that I've heard you share, and I know I haven't heard you share all of it, but in the times that you've shared it, it has always been something to encourage me that I'm not the only one out here sharing about domestic violence, and that I shouldn't be afraid to continue to share my story. Even in the book that I've written, They Get to Find Out Love, Guilt, and Shame Turn to My Shine, I was afraid to even put that book out. I was so nervous because when I had written it, I was not divorced from my ex-husband at the time. And I was like, what are people going to say? So I just want to say thank you for reminding me to continue on, and that you are continuing on to share your story. So before we let everyone know where they can find you, can you just provide like a short, maybe 30-second encouragement to those that might be facing domestic violence currently?
Okay, you can get out, and no, it's not going to be easy. It took me months to get away from my first assailant. Actually, rephrase. It took me years to get away from my first assailant. I was a teenage kid. I did not know where there were resources. In fact, in those days, there weren't really any resources. So I had to depend on an elderly man. And to me, he was elderly because I was a kid, but he was a beautiful soul who came and saved my life and took me to the hospital. And that's how I was saved. When I got into other bad relationships, I thought I had to stay because he ain't hit me. That's when I started realizing there are levels. So I started helping other people. That is your way out. I worked for a victim services agency for 5 years, free, because that's how badly I needed to do something for other people, to help them to see that if you pour into others, it will be poured back into you, and you can heal in that way. You don't have to sit and hide. And so I work with them, and victim services is now called Safe Horizon. And I met some amazing people there. I want you to know that when he tells you that nobody's ever going to love you or want you, and you ugly and all this other stuff, he's lying. He's insecure. He's afraid. He's afraid. that he's going to lose you. He knows that you're a jewel. He knows that you're a gem. He knows that you're amazing. That's why he got with you in the first place. He knows what he has, but he's afraid that he's not enough for you. So you're going to go out there and you're going to find somebody who's better. And he's right, because you are. You are. And I did. I met some amazing men. I was bitter for a minute, but then I had to get past that because God kept showing me there are amazing men like your brothers, like your uncles. There are amazing men. You raised an amazing son. My son is in his early 30s, and he's amazing. He is married, as his first baby, and he's a boy. And when I raise my grandson, I tell him every day that he's a little king, so that he will grow up knowing his value, so he won't feel like his value has to be in the way of beating somebody down, so he can feel worthy to be lifted up. You can get out, beloved. You're not by yourself. There are many, many others just like you and me. So don't hush, holla. Don't listen to your elders when they tell you, don't tell our family business. They don't want to be embarrassed because they're stuck in a time where they were embarrassed. But this is not that time anymore. So you tell the stories and you shout it loudly. And you're a survivor, so you shout it proudly. It is your power. It is not it's not some petty little pain that you have to hide under the rug anymore. It's not that. It's your power. And make it your purpose to help other women and to help other men, because I met some men who've been abused too. You're a king. You're a queen. Walk, strut like you are, and trust and believe like you are, that you are, because you are. God created all of us to be amazing recipients of eternal life. And if we take this life and callously throw it away or let somebody else destroy it, then what we're saying is that we don't think we deserve the life in the first place. And I refuse to accept that. I refuse.
Thank you so much for just reminding all of us that we need to speak up and speak out, especially when it comes to domestic violence. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget to tune in next week as we remember to be blessed, motivated, and always inspired to do what God lays on your heart.
Hi, I'm Jawanda Rollins Fells, and I've made it my purpose to help you find your purpose. I serve on the school board to make sure that we are ensuring the best education for the next generation.